Gumiho, Nine Tales of Nine Tails. Written and illustrated by Andrew Frinkle. This is a 9-story collection. I'll be reading for you the first selection from the book. Gumiho, the First Tale. I was born as a fox without a tail. This is not at all a normal situation for foxes. Foxes are supposed to have long, bushy tails and glorious reds, tans, or grays. Yet I was born with only a stub where a long tail should have been. I did not know it at the time, but it was because I was special. My mother, who was a smart fox, could not explain it to me either because foxes can't express such concepts without words, and everyone knows that foxes can't talk. Just how can I talk then? Well, I'm not really a fox, not completely anyway. I'm not really a person either. I'm something in between, something called a gumiho. You see, this nub of a tail was just the beginning of a collection of tails that I would have to grow. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I got my first tail. It's good to start at the beginning, with first things first. Just how does one become a gumiho? I've come to understand that my mother had once been caught in a man's snare trap. When the hunter came trudging up the hill a day or two later to check his traps and saw her stuck there, he was struck by a fanciful notion. He decided he could not keep her for her furs. It was too cruel of a fate for such a beautiful animal. He decided that he should let her go, which was very contrary to his nature. He was a hunter after all, and had in his lifetime sold hundreds of pelts from mink, beaver, fox, and ermine. Why should he let her loose then? Who can say? Perhaps it was fate. Of course, my mother was a wild fox, and she was already suffering greatly from having a snare wire cutting into her leg for more than a day. So she was not ready to trust any human for any reason. When the hunter knelt and reached for the snare to set her free, she snapped and snarled at him. He snatched his hand back in a hurry, nearly knocking his own hat off his head. He might have given up and killed her for her pelt, but he had set his mind and was not ready to give up on freeing her. So he backed away and put on gloves. Then he reached to set her free again. This time, she bit him again, biting down hard enough that she pierced his skin even through the gloves. She drew a drop of blood as he unhooked her foot, and that drop of blood is part of what made me a gumiho, instead of a young fox kit like the rest of my litter mates. In that one instant, her golden eyes met his brown human ones, and a flicker of understanding passed between the two. She knew his intent and understood his mind. My mother was immeasurably changed forever, certainly not tame, but no longer what she had been. The hunter rubbed some salve on her wounded leg, and then he let her go. She retreated into the woods, but they watched each other for a long while before they finally turned to leave. Their moment was over, but neither would ever be the same after that. Who can say what changes came over the hunter? Certainly, he was not untouched by the encounter. My mother was different from the other foxes in the woods, smarter and somewhat aloof, caught between the world of the humans and foxes. When I was born, I had 5 brothers and sisters. They were my litter mates. Only I, the last born, inherited her intelligence. None of my litter mates shared my blessing, my affliction. It could be a blessing, but I also call it an affliction, because it is hard being different and alone amongst family, always being different and never fully belonging. This was not the last difference imparted upon me by my mother. She left me a little something else, or didn't, I should say, and that was a tail. As a gumiho, I would have to earn the right to a tail that all other foxes would have been born with. But I would not stop with a single tail. No, I was a gumiho, a 9-tailed fox. If I lived long enough and learned enough, I would gather 9 tails. My siblings and I watched my mother and learned from her in the way of animals. We learned by watching and doing, emulating her ways, first in play with my siblings and later in practice. She taught us what it meant to be a fox, what it was to survive these woods, and how to live as an animal. She could cleverly catch bugs, frogs, moles, mice, and all manners of food. She could fish crunchy crayfish from the river, find the fattest caterpillars to gobble down, and locate hidden groves of delectable berries. She knew how to hide from the forest's predators, as well as the most dangerous predator of all, man. She taught us the scent of man and his workings, and how to avoid the subtle traps they could put out to catch us. She knew much of these woods, perhaps more than any other creature that lived there. No other creature in the whole forest knew where the best places to slake thirst were, places with the cleanest, coolest water. Nor could any animal make as comfortable a den as she could. She knew how to care for young and how to mark her territory, and she was not challenged in her realm. I learned all of the ways of the fox, mastering all of the skills that my mother could teach me. By far, I was her best student, exceeding all of my littermates. My intelligence, strength, and speed made me quickly surpass even my mother's impressive skills, though I did not realize it at first. There was a day, though, when I caught my mother regarding me with a strange expression, something that included sadness but also wonderment. I realized then that I had done something that she could not, that I was beyond what she could teach me, and that I could learn no more from her. When I had learned my lessons and more, I fell asleep one night, on the night of a full moon, feeling more tired than I could ever remember. It was an unnatural tiredness, an exhaustion that goes beyond the body and into the spirit. I awoke with a terrible pain in my chest, a pain that ran down my back the entire length of my spine to my missing tail, which throbbed with the most horrible sensation I'd ever felt. Then, before my dark eyes, the tail appeared, silvery and ghost-like at first, but growing more solid as the night passed. By morning, the pain was gone and I had my first tail. My 5 littermates were all nearly grown, ready to leave and seek out lives of their own, but I had gone beyond them. I was different, apart from them. I was the fastest, smartest, and most daring of the 6, and it was I who left first. I remember meeting my mother's eyes for the last time as I left the den. She knew that I was different, destined for something more than she could offer. She knew there would be more for me in this world. Part of her looked sad, because she could not share in what I would learn and see, despite being more than just a common fox. She was not a Gumiho, and she could not become more than she already had. She would always be just a fox, but I would have the chance to become more than a fox with each new lesson I learned. With the arrival of my first tail came the understanding that I had to reach for more, that there were more lessons to learn and more tails to grow. Had I understood numbers then, I'd have realized that I had 8 more tails to grow, and that each one would mean learning a difficult lesson. Each tail would mean enduring an unbearable pain on a full moon, all leading up to one day when I had to make the most difficult choice of all. But that was another story. I hope you enjoyed the story. Learn more about this and other stories at andrewfrinkle.com, or get your own copy at amazon.com/author/Andrew Frinkle.